We are live.
Hey,
Hey,
we are.
noticing you have a bit different background today, my friend.
Yes, I'm at my old family house with my mum, and she's not right. She's not here right now, but yeah, I've just travelled down for the Christmas period, and thankfully Herefordshire is in Tier 1, so we're in a safer climate right here as well. But yeah, nice to be back. I've just come off a 3-hour car journey, a little bit roasted from that, but really keen to get into some of the subjects that we talked about for this afternoon.
Well, I sent you a message because I ran across something this week that I found utterly fascinating, and I wanted to raise it up. I don't know if you've heard of ASMR.
I have heard of it, and I've watched a couple of videos out of fascination, really. But how much have you digged into it?
So I've saved videos. I've only watched about 10 seconds of each video just to get an idea on the scale of what ASMR is. And I think my initial impression, and I'll share with you to get your view, but my initial impression, what's on YouTube in relation to ASMR isn't what it's necessarily intended for. I think there's channels that are getting a lot of views on ASMR simply because, well, there's some certain outliers, the prerequisites they're meeting to get views that aren't necessarily related to ASMR. And I think ASMR is sort of like the little backup piece that goes to it.
Right.
But I thought the first thing we could do is I saw a very good explanation video on what ASMR is. So I'm just going to cue that up. Cool. Well, there's a few things I want to cue up. I want to cue up what my impression of ASMR was. So I'm going to share what I thought it was, because I've noticed over the last 3 months, and I think we've brought it up, some of the content that we've discussed. In the content we've discussed, there were some videos that I've referenced that have soothed me, and a lot of it had to do with the sound. So my initial impression was ASMR was just essentially I'm hearing things that make me calm and comforted. But I don't think that's the case. So here's one example of what my perception to ASMR was initially. So let me just bring that up, and let me go through all the stuff that I do to share it, because I'm not very quick at this. And let me know if you can't hear it. Why aren't we? There it is.
Okay, it's loading now.
Can you hear that? So I'll be working. And to me, this was my impression of what ASMR is. Notice the microphone he's got a very high quality microphone set up. And this is similar to that channel that you referenced to me. There's a guy in the woods who pretty much just films him doing chores.
Yeah.
And it's the sound of the snapping. Yes. And it's the idea that he's out in the snow. He's building a fire. He's not anywhere near work. He's not near an office. He's not being hounded. I think all of us would like to be doing this activity right now. So this was my impression of what ASMR was. There's other videos as well.
Yeah, sorry. Tell me when, because I'd like to. I'll give you my thoughts on what I thought it was, because I'm in that boat right there. Like, I've got a perception of what it is. I've not really looked into it, and I don't know how far I'm off it. So maybe you don't need to share that now.
Okay,
it's up to you, but I'll let you know at some point what I thought it was prior to what I'm about to be educated on. So I'm looking forward to seeing how close I am or how far I'm off it.
Okay, because I'm gonna show one other video that I look at as very ASMR-y, and I referenced this before, but it's very much the sounds. Again, sounds that I'm hearing that are just sort of taking me away from stress. Is my impression of ASMR.
Natural kind of wholesome sounds.
Yes. So I'm going to just play this, and I'm just going to let it be quiet.
All right. I have put that photo on your website and have looked at it as carefully as possible under gross magnification. The size of the alien's cranium is amazing.
The sound of the
configuration that would
can you hear that, by the way?
Human.
I can, yeah.
Of course, the eyes
that slight distortion,
large,
and I referenced this in a video, like somebody was doing a video game, driving and listening to a radio show.
Shine in each eye,
and I'm looking at this, and I'm hearing this, and I'm seeing I'm putting myself in the position of being in a car at 2 a.m., driving on the highway, listening to the radio. It's cold outside. It's warm in the car.
And their position.
And I've got this just very fuzzy radio. There's something about the radio that's really soothing to me at this stage. I'm finding this very soothing. And this is what I thought ASMR was, or what I think ASMR is.
I don't know for sure.
Now, what I'll do is I'll play a video that somebody's made. It's a very popular video that describes ASMR in a very ASMR style fashion. So I'm going to cue that up next. So I'm curious to see how this differentiates from your view, and I'll share and how it differentiates from mine.
Well, shall I go ahead, Sean, whilst you cue it up?
Why don't you share with me what you think ASMR is whilst I cue up the next video?
So I was looking for a guided meditation for like 25 minutes to make up my weekly total one day. And I looked online, guided meditation on YouTube. And this one came up, and it was a particularly attractive girl that was on it as well. And 25 minutes, not that that mattered because my eyes are shut, but it was near the top of the list. And it said ASMR. I had no idea what the hell that even meant, what it was. Guided meditation, 25 minutes. Oh, perfect. Just clicked on it. And then this lady starts speaking. She's like, oh, a British accent. She's got, quite a nice voice. And I didn't realize that she's doing the whole ASMR,
yeah.
ASMR thing.
It's a thing.
Where she's speaking very, particular into the microphone and enunciating everything. And it was quite soothing. So I just went ahead with that. And then on the suggested items were all this ASMR other stuff with her in very flirtatious, let's put it that way, flirtatious clothing and makeup. And I was like, the hell is it? What have I just watched? I mean, I didn't watch it. I was just listening to something, but I kind of clicked on it. Again, hands up, because it was an attractive woman. I just thought, I got to just see what this is. I looked into it. And it's like, oh, it's a speaking thing. So it's like a sensory thing where it's I don't know, sort of like the crackles and the sounds, and they're like enunciating every single word, and they're doing it, and they're putting particular emphasis on certain words. And there was this sexual undertone on some of it. There was a relaxing undertone on some of the other videos. So I just think it is people that get kind of either turned on or or calmed down. They have some kind of like fixation from this sound on a mic, on particular from a microphone. So that's what I kind of put together from it, completely by accident. So I've done no research on it. I kind of accidentally stumbled across it. I don't know how close that is to any of the stuff.
I think you've done a good job of describing it. I think. Let me play this. Let me play of describing it. Let me play a video, because I'm even after reading about it, I'm not 100% up to speed on what it is. Or I guess when I see the ASMR videos we're going to be watching, it doesn't give me the same sensation or desire to watch more ASMR videos that millions upon millions of people are watching across the internet.
It looks big. It's a big thing. Yeah.
So let's play the next one here. And this may even be so. She is describing ASMR in, I guess, an ASMR style.
Hello, my name is Maria, and I'm here to tell you about ASMR. Autonomous Sensory Meridian Response. It's a pleasant, tingling feeling that you experience when you hear unique, soft voices or hear certain soothing sounds, such as tapping, or both, like sounds of you whispering and brushing your hair.
I'm not enjoying this.
I'm kind of relaxed by it.
Or giving you a scalp massage.
I'm not turned on by it. I'm relaxed by it.
I can use this brush to trace along your face.
That's not an accident.
Yeah, I mean,
she's never handled a brush like that in private.
No. I mean, she could have pretended to put it in her gob, to be honest.
I'm going to go back to that because I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Yeah. Is this how she if anybody's watching, is this how you handle a brush?
To trace along your face.
It's
Just to say, all she needs is an open mouth and to be gesturing it towards her mouth to kind of cap that off. Can you pause it for a minute, mate? Because I've got something to kind of admit on this as well. That I don't get turned on by it. It doesn't turn me off either. It's pleasant. It's pleasant to listen to. What she explained, when you get that tingly, I've had that with talking to people. I've been in the presence of someone, and they've kind of, the way they've talked, I don't know. I've had that feeling before.
Yeah.
Have you ever had that?
I think when I look at that video, so the video that I shared with the radio voice, I think it probably has, there's not a tingling sensation. It's a calming and soothing sensation. But I believe ASMR is meant to give you that tingling sort of almost pins and needles or excitement, that sort of, I don't know. It is like a nervous reaction.
I've had that. I've had that before. And I think, again, just to be open, I think it was in the presence of someone that was just like attractive, and they were calming to talk to, and it was something quite soothing. They say it wasn't like it wasn't an erotic arousal thing. It was just like, but I remember this kind of pins and needly kind of weird feeling I had in the presence of someone else and the way they were talking with a soothing voice. I never thought of that, actually. But that interesting with the brush strokes, seemed very much like the YouTube channel that I was on. This lady was really putting it out there, like, it's an audio and a visual thing on YouTube. Now, I don't know how much that plays into it or not, but it's quite funny because the way she's talking, her gestures were similar to what I saw.
When I watch this, I get very it kind of puts me on edge a bit. It does the opposite, because I'm just like, just speak up. Just speak up. You're not speaking with your normal voice. You're not even whispering. You're speaking kind of like this. And it's just, oh, okay, fine. And then it's just like the tapping on things. And it's, I don't know. There's just something that is ever so slightly cringy for me watching this. And I can understand there's things that I can get why people find certain things soothing, but it's the talking and the whispering. It just sort of puts me on edge. It's like when someone's whispering in your ear, you're just kind of like, for a second, you feel the breath in your ear. You're like, you can talk to me. You don't have to whisper it in my ear.
I'll stand by it, mate. I find it soothing. I think the video is more cringeable. I don't need the video to get that. The sound of it, the quietness, and then the softness of the spoken, the whispering and the tapping. There is something I could feel myself calming from it, but it's weird, isn't it?
Let's go through, because I think this video here is a good example of one that is, all right. We can take that I guess that hand wanking the brush thing. We'll just say that that's an accident. Because it seems like a genuine video.
Yeah.
I'm gonna chalk that up to being a genuine educational video.
Yeah.
So this video I'm going to share now is the first video that I saw that was an ASMR video. And this is where I was like, what's this? So let me just cue this one up for you, because I think this is going to be more what you're talking about. Now, whilst I'm queuing it up, I'm just going to give you the name of it, ASMR, and then it says "You Will Get Hot." It says 2.3 million views.
Jeez, right, okay.
And what I guess what I get amazed with is as we go through these videos, it's how little work some of these videos took. And, we do shitty videos. I'm not going to say that we're amazing at what we do in any stretch, but we do these shitty videos, and it takes me hours sometimes to do some of the stuff that we produce, and it's shit. I guarantee that the stuff they're doing is taking a quarter of the time it takes me, and they're making a living off of these ASMR videos. So let me it's in the middle of right here. Okay, here we go.
Oh, just random. Okay. I wonder if this is the same one I was watching. What's the bottom left about? Why is there another person?
Kissing you to sleep. So that's her trying to get you to go to her Patreon.
Okay, right. Okay.
Kissing you to sleep. I'm wondering if the Patreon page has a bit more skin.
I see. I should definitely make you warm. So let's start. So
Jesus. This is Channel 5 stuff, mate. This is, you know, on the soft porn side.
And then look at in the corner. I didn't even pay attention to the corner. Her Patreon content really pushing you to put money down. I think this, to me, this looks more like advertising for an OnlyFans site. It doesn't look like a therapeutic video that's going to calm me in any way.
Oh, she's just cashing it. She's renting her ass out, mate. That's what she's doing. She is trying to make money is her goal by, you know, putting herself out there. And hey, power to her.
Hey,
I can imagine people getting into that big time. I can totally understand why there are loads of views on it. I don't think, again, it does it for me on the arousal side of it, but I get the soothing sound of it, and obviously a very attractive woman. So I think the combination, like it's going to tick some boxes for some men. That is for sure.
Again, for me, the whispering just it kind of, maybe it does give me an ASMR reaction, but I'm not finding it pleasant. I'm finding it just like, oh, you know, just the whispering. It's like that sound in my ear. It makes me want to scratch my ears. I don't like that personally.
I don't get that, but I know what you mean. I probably I like the softly spoken and the sounds and the tapping more. I think find that more relaxing.
Next video, let me see here. I'm gonna use the no talking version. This one I can get. So this one, I'm gonna bring it up. My internet seems to be going slow with this stuff right now. I think the stream is publishing fine. So the next one, I'm gonna pop this on. I get this one, the Tingle Tailor. And what I like about this is, again, ASMR isn't my thing, but the production quality, the effort that he went into making this video is very good.
Yeah, I like this. This is soothing.
Now this I can understand this. This makes sense to me. I can see why people would like this. Especially in this digital world we're living in. You don't hear these sounds anymore. You know, everything is very like scissors and the sound of buckles creaking and the metal from the pins and the paper. These are all going to be foreign sounds someday.
But on this one as well, we're looking at quality stuff.
Yes,
there is a visual element. It's something quite soothing to this quality stuff that he's doing, and it's a little bit old school as well, which is quite soothing on the eyes, like the kind of woodcrafty stuff we were listening to before, and watching before.
And then I think ultimately it's just him working on tailoring a suit.
Yeah, I get it. I do find that soothing.
So this was the best example that I found. So I'm just going in the order that I found them. I probably should have gone backwards. But what I'll do is I'll go to a few more. And if, let's say, ASMR was ever going to be something that I would start looking at on YouTube, I would probably go in that direction. People just doing their everyday things. And I think to a certain degree, the video that I was sharing with the campfire being made, that is very similar to what that is. So maybe I am watching an ASMR video, albeit unintentionally.
Hey, mate, what about the crackling of the fire? You get those videos, don't you? Watching a fire and having that tick along in the background, that's divine. Because we've got a log burner at our house, and we've also got an open fire. But we use the log burner in that room mainly. That's where we're situated with, it's like the TV room. But the other room, the open fire, is the sound of that crackling away and spitting, and it's so soothing.
So there's a few different other videos I'm going to play before we close out our ASMR section. This was the next one I found, and this was an example of just like, again, it just seems like somebody's getting involved in something, and fair play. That's going to have a profit margin to it. That's going to have him make a living. Now, this video has, I think it had something like 2 or 3 million views. This channel has enough subscribers that he's doing this for a living. And it really just looks like he's grabbing shit and trying to find as many different noises that he can make, and into a really highly sensitive microphone. Like, I kind of want to punch him in the face.
I don't have those levels of aggression, but I find the video more off-put. It's taken away from it.
Mm.
Yeah,
Not my thing.
That kind of bubbly sound is not doing it for me.
Yeah, so that had, sorry, I was exaggerating a bit. That video had 332,000 views. He's got 1.4 million subscribers.
Well, close to us then. Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, fair play. He's got some skin in the game. He's doing his thing. He's probably making a nice living, and there's people that are benefiting from that. So here's another one. This is where we're going towards the other end of the AMSR spectrum. I don't know why everything's going so slow, mine. Apologies for that.
That's all right, mate. It's a welcome change, to be honest. Oh yeah, the eating. Yeah. I've heard this, that people just will tune in to hear someone eat. I find that's so weird. And that does not do it for me.
No. It's the sound of and I think that's part of it, is the sound of the lip smacking, and even when you hear people talking, it's a sound quite a lot.
I think it's quite a disgusting or annoying sound, hearing someone eat.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's not, I don't think, the standard. So this video, let's just take a look and see. Oh man, it's so slow, it's painful. This has 66 million views.
Jesus.
5.7 million subscribers. We are doing it all wrong, mate.
I think that must be a thumbnail thing as well, because you've got some of these people that they're going with like the guy we were just watching. The sound wasn't doing it for me, although I'm sure it does. It must do for other people, but the video doesn't. This one, the sound doesn't do it for me. But she's a younger girl. She's attractive, and yeah, that thumbnail might just be pulling people in.
So here's one of the classic ones, the mukbang ASMR.
Oh mate, it's disgusting. Like, fucking hell.
But they're up. I'm going to actually mute that for a second.
Oh mate, please.
It's so cringe. But let's just take a look at the views and the popularity of this. Jeez. That meal looks incredible, by the way.
Oh, absolutely.
4 million views, 2 million subscribers. Sets up a camera on a stand and just starts smashing a real massive. And it's the comments I wanted to look at as well. So, wow, I'm here again. Let's be honest, this is not your first time here. Fun fact, this was the first ASMR video I ever watched. To the person reading this, oh, you're back again. So there's a lot of "you're back again," which tells me the people who are watching this accept that it's a weird thing to watch.
Yeah.
So it's almost been 2 years, and this is still the best ASMR video of all time. Maybe I need to give it another chance. Let me just get that volume back up again.
There's something that relates to this. It's like that kind of fixation thing. And Lou was obsessed with this because she works in this kind of industry.
Yeah.
Have you ever seen Dr. Pimple Popper?
Yes. I can understand that though.
This gets people. It's a bit more Marmitey though, I think. Maybe. Well, maybe because people are repulsed by it, or almost not turned on, but they get so much satisfaction of watching something being popped or squeezed out of skin. And Lou actually we started watching a few videos. I was like, oh, actually, let's watch that one. Oh, that one looks pretty big. Let's look at that. I was like, what am I doing? I was getting carried away with it. But
well, I thought what I might do, I was thinking about, this is just tough to watch.
She could try and put some more in her mouth, I think, as well.
She can put that away. It's a genuine video as well. It has 331K likes, 39K dislikes. And it's incredible what qualifies for content. And we don't do a great job here at this channel. We try, but we work really hard at it. And it's just, for me, you look at that in comparison, you just find these niches on YouTube, and it's definitely must have some sort of an emotional tag. It must be something people are drawn to, because in that video, it's not sexual in any way. It's just, somebody smashing noodles in their face and putting a microphone. That's it. There's nothing. That is an authentic, genuine video in my view.
So this is Hugh's take on it. Lou has got, I've got these headphones, and Lou has got one of the noise cancelling ones. She treated herself. And last night I had to do some accountancy work. So I sat down, boring, doing numbers. I said, do you mind if I borrow your headphones just to chuck on in front of the TV, just doing some stuff? And hearing that all-encompassing sound, just cover your whole, you get like transformed. It's the same music as I was listening to this, but because there's nothing else coming in the way, you get a little bit more lost in it. So I think with these type of videos, there's a sense of total abandonment from the reality of life, which is what most of us seek at several points in our life. That's why people turn to alcohol, TV, and the distraction, news, social media, is to distract from the reality of sitting with ourselves and being, actually living in the moment. And this is a great way to just snap out of it, because I could feel myself doing that in some of the earlier ones where I'm not being recorded on the podcast. I was just listening and a little transfixed in the first couple of videos, listening to them. And it makes you feel very relaxed. And I can totally get why people would seek that. And I'm not someone that, I may never watch this again after this video, but I still like it.
Yeah.
But there must be people that are
loving it.
Want to keep going. Yeah, exactly. Just keep wanting to go back for more, get that fix again.
I thought I would have a go at making one right here, actually.
Ooh,
yeah,
okay.
I might give it a go. So
you got a brush?
No, but what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put. So I've got the formula. I don't have the brush, but I've got a few things I can use. So I've got something pretty on the screen, and I also have Brad Pitt.
Wow.
Okay.
Oh.
And what I'll do is let's give it a go. I'm gonna make it. So I've got all the pieces. So hold on. Let me if I take this off.
Okay.
All right. I'm gonna start making an ASMR video. I've got something pretty in the background. Excuse me. That was the bear. Sorry. I'm just gonna go. I can see why this is such hard work, because I can't keep my shit together. I'm gonna comb my beard now. Hugh, is this doing anything for you?
It's relaxing.
Are you getting turned on?
Slightly by Brad Pitt.
Yeah. Okay, I gotta stop. That was my. So should we be moving the channel to ASMR content?
Well, if we're not, you are. Now that made me laugh. I had to hold it together not to piss myself laughing when you slurped your drink, followed by 10 seconds later burping and trying to hold the burp from going on the mic. But you know what, mate? You're whispering, the golf ball tapping, the brushing the beard, and the gaps of silence in between all that. I actually found myself getting soothed by it. I can't believe it, but I did.
What are we doing? Why are we not making content like this?
Mate, if that's your first go, imagine if you and imagine if you were getting serious about it.
Man, we need an ASMR channel. I just couldn't take it seriously.
And it still worked.
It still worked. But that says something about the content. That if you can speak in a manner that is soothing or hits a chord with somebody, and you can come across as being genuine. So if I look at the video of the girl who's scantily clad, whispering and rubbing her hand on the screen, I just don't have buy-in, because you're just trying to sucker me into a video and give you views. Whereas I'm okay with the mukbang video. I'm okay with that, because they're doing something that people do enjoy. As much as I find it gross, it's done with a very genuine nature. Ugh, sorry.
I don't have the different. Yeah, I don't differentiate personally. I just think, like, if someone wants to put their skin and parts out there suggestively, or if someone wants to eat or whatever, it's like fair enough. I just think it depends on how you feel about it. Like, I would actually prefer to listen to the people putting their skin out there, talking and trying to be a little bit more flirtatious. I find that more relaxing than the eating thing. But I mean, power to them all. But the thing from a business perspective, I also look at this, but the barrier to entry seems so low to get into this stuff. Like you just rolled with it off the cuff, and it actually worked. So I imagine the competition must be ridiculous to try and stand out in this field.
Maybe there's something where we do reviews, but we speak very, very close to the microphone.
Yeah.
And just do that. The bar is low though, because you had a visceral reaction. It was something that you and I didn't. I genuinely, it was a joke. It was a joke.
Oh, I could see. I was watching you as well, and that was what was. I was gonna say, if you had the camera off, I would have probably gone to a different level, because I was watching you, like doing, trying to keep it together and try not to laugh. I was then finding that funny, but weren't it?
Well, I think from an ASMR front, when I look at a lot of those videos, the ones that if you were to do a search for ASMR, a lot of it is people finding, maybe people with less, I don't want to say less scruples. It's not fair, because I don't begrudge them one bit for doing what they're doing, even though I won't give them the views. I just don't know that I could make a living doing that unless there was some sort of an angle that would make me feel like I'm doing something other than just like the one guy who had just the noises and was just, making noises and looking at the camera. I don't know. There was something that didn't sit right with me on that. I didn't know what it was. It just, that wasn't for me.
I wouldn't have thought her dad is too proud.
No.
All their brothers will be tuning into that stuff. And it
depends.
It's when it comes down to that. Like, again, it's up to her. She does whatever she wants, because there'll be people that will want that, and they will get value from it. I'm just not sure, assumption here, that she's doing it for all those credible reasons. But yeah, if she wants to do it for money, that's fine. It's just not what I would choose to do with my time.
Yeah,
I think there's more to life than just trying to do things for money.
So it's going to be a shorter show this week for anybody who's watching, which for some that may be a great thing. For us, it's less time together. But I wanted to move forward on the next topic. So this week in the news, I need to get a news thing, because we're going to be doing more news. I was thinking we want to call it BPI News, Bearded Philosophy International. Make it a bit official. Yeah, maybe do some sort of an intro. I don't know. Man, that beer slurping really.
BPW.
BPW
worldwide.
Ooh, BPWW worldwide, or what? No, W. Sorry, BP is worldwide. That's one word.
Worldwide.
Yeah, BPW.
That's one, isn't it?
Yeah. I shouldn't have asked that question out loud. There's that whole saying that you should be silent and be thoughtful, then open your mouth and remove all doubt. I really love that quote. So this week, news stories that caught my eye. And I think I like that we're doing these a bit more, because we're going to have a bit more context to talk week on week. So this jumped out at me this week, and it really is a sign of where we're at in today's society. So Kansas mayor resigns after threats over backing mask mandate. I do not feel safe in this position anymore.
Oh, wow.
Western Kansas mayor announced her immediate resignation Tuesday because of threats she's received after publicly supporting a mask mandate during the COVID-19 pandemic. Dodge City Mayor Joyce Warshaw said she was concerned about her safety after encountering aggression, including threats via phone and email, and she was quoted in a USA Today article Friday supporting a mask mandate. Life has dealt out many challenges in our world that have perhaps caused many people to act inappropriately, but do not feel in this position anymore, and am hopeful. Sorry, do not feel safe in this position anymore, and am hopeful in removing myself. This anger, accusations, and abuse will not fall on anyone else, and will calm down. So I'm still, and I know I talked about it before, but I'm still absolutely flabbergasted that the masks are a thing. I can understand people getting pissed off about lockdown. I can understand about restrictions. I just don't understand where the conspiracy theory is when it comes to wearing masks. I don't get it. Do you have any way to connect this to reality?
The only thing, again, it's all Hugh science. It's all off the top of my head, Sean. Back to nothing, but I think it's restriction of freedom. I think it's you being told to do something that you've not done your whole life, and who are you to tell me what to do type of thing, because they're uncomfortable. I, as someone that wears glasses, when I ever go in shops, I have to then put my glasses down here because they end up steaming up. It's annoying, but yeah, I do it because the risk and reward, I think it's a responsible thing to do. I'm trying to be a good citizen and protect myself and others that I may pass on. But to other people, I can see, you know, I'd like to think I'm someone that thinks a little bit more about other people, and I've got a bit more generosity and support in me. And there are other people that are particularly selfish and weaker-willed and don't want to deal with any discomfort. And there are some people that are very cynical and they'll look at things very negatively. They push back. I've worked with people that push back on everything. You know, we were trying to give people bonuses and people were complaining about you, like, are you joking? We're trying to give you extra money, and there's still some cynicism in the fact that we're doing, or they're only just trying to get us. I'm like, what are you on about? We're just trying to reward you for doing a good job. And it's like, I cannot believe that giving you money is so. From my life experience, from you trying to do good, even, and you're trying to protect the health for wearing a mask, people will still find that, well, yeah, it affects me in this way, or there's something else going on. So I think there's the discomfort element, is the freedom element, and you're not going to control me. So that's, I don't know how accurate the reality is of that, Sean, but that's my best take in it. What do you think on my thoughts, or have you got anything to add to that?
I think where I get confused is where the disconnect is between what a doctor says, somebody who is, you know, medically trained, who says you need to wear a mask because it will reduce the instance or the chance that somebody will get ill. So if let's say the people that are threatening the mayor accept that people will die from the virus, but not a lot of people, even there's people who believe that this is fairly conspiratorial. However, will accept that people will die from it, even if it's older people. And they will accept that the pandemic, it's a viral infection. Sorry, it's a virus that spreads quite easily. And on that front, even if I put myself in that position where a doctor says, look, if you just wear a mask going in and out of a shop, then there's less of a chance more people will die. To me, that's a no-brainer. And where I run into, and this, I'm going to connect this with my activity yesterday, and we actually have a comment as well, which .connector, I'll get to you in just a second. When in my view, it's people's awareness. I was walking down a canal path yesterday, and my wife is uncomfortable being, she doesn't want to get the virus, doesn't want to go near anybody. And there's a woman standing in the middle of the path on a canal path. Now that canal path is, you know how they are. If you're not living in Britain, about 3 or 4 feet wide. And this woman saw me coming, and I just had to squelch around the edge to get around her. And Nick didn't want to go by her. And she looked at us like we were crazy. And we didn't have a conversation with her, but it's just that lack of self-awareness. What if myself and my wife were had a lot of comorbidities? We needed to go out to get exercise. And all we need you to do is just keep that distance that everybody in the world has been going on about, because you may be carrying something that you don't know. And by me trying to go past you, you're making me feel uncomfortable. And you could be posing a threat or a risk to me. It's that lack of awareness. I don't care if you don't believe in it. I don't care if you're not wearing a mask outside, but just give some space. Don't act like, it's that consideration that I just don't understand. It's not as if the messaging hasn't been out there. And that's where I get confused. It's just the lack of consideration that other people may be in other situations. That, my wife could have a lot of issues that mean that if she gets this, she could be in trouble. Just to go to the comments, .connector said, the best masks filter 9 micron, and the COVID-19 is less than 1 micron. Masks do cause bacterial infections and oxygen deprivation. Not all doctors recommend masks. Some warn about its effects. I can only speak on behalf of, I have 2 friends that are doctors. And you're 100% right that so this is what he said, talking about it, that the virus can fit through the mask. So the idea of the mask, and just look it up. I'm not going to get into a debate on the efficacy of masks, but every country in the world is taking them on because masks, and doctors will tell you the majority of them. And you may know somebody who would say otherwise, but the majority of doctors will say that masks will baffle and prevent that spread from going further. So yes, people will still get ill if you're around somebody wearing a mask.
Yeah,
but if you're around 10 people, then let's say of varying distances, you now have a better chance of infecting, let's say with a mask on 1 as opposed to 8. Whereas if you're not wearing a mask, that vapor is going to go further. I saw a really good video where somebody was spraying aerosol from behind a mask, and you could see that the actual plume of powder of air filament, I don't know what to call it, but the particulate, sorry, didn't go as far. So it's not about stopping you from getting it, and it's not about stopping everybody from getting it. It's about limiting the amount of people who get infected and passing it on. And that's all it is. It's not a cure.
Yeah.
It's not a 100% fix. But I appreciate the comment, Doc Connector. I really do. Me personally, that's not what the majority of doctors, and 100% of the doctors I've spoken to, which to be fair is 2, those doctors say, yeah, masks will help limit the transmission of the disease. It won't stop it. So you're right, but we want to limit the number of instances people are getting it. It's the same reason you cover your mouth when you sneeze. You're not going to stop everything with your hand. Your hand isn't going to do anything as far as stopping it. It's going to prevent it from spraying all over God's creation. And what this does is it prevents you from breathing and spreading it everywhere. I mean, that's my understanding anyway.
Yeah, that's the same as my understanding. I don't think we're in disagreement with what's being said, although I don't have anything to back up whether Dot Connector, how legit their claims are or aren't. But they make sense to me too, and I don't think either of us are stating that they're a be all fix all. But it's just something that's just going to lessen the spread to a degree, and I think it's quite obvious as well from a personal perspective that oxygen deprivation, yeah, for sure. I think if you have breathing issues, I can imagine that being a real issue for people.
Yeah,
I don't like
I
it
think
either.
it's fair.
I don't like being in, I went shopping a few months back, and I hadn't been for a while. I'd been stuck in the house for so long, and I went into the city centre, and mate, it was so uncomfortable having that mask on constantly and being around people. And I could feel like a shortness of. I didn't like it. It made me feel anxious. Is what it was. So again, I'd like to think I'm in relatively good health overall. So again, there's people that are obese that aren't fit and healthy and having to wear masks. I can understand that being an issue for people, or people that have had panic attacks previously. I don't imagine they're very good from that side, at least bringing that out. But Lou as well, she's a nurse and she's had issues with the actual face mask because, again, I find it difficult going into a shop for half an hour or whatever it is. She's got to wear one all day. That's all, and she's walking, moving around. She's got to wear one constantly. I was developing a rash around her face, exactly where it was, and they've even got a term for it now, maskitis, or it was something like that. It's
that
like
the official term?
I think I butchered it. Lou would be laughing watching it, but it was something not a million miles away from that anyway. So again, we're not here. Well, I'll speak for myself. I'm not here to state that masks are the be all and end all. And I think that there should be just a healthy balance of knowledge on this, that they don't prevent everything. So people shouldn't be getting up in arms of people walking around without wearing them outside. If you're walking down the street and not wearing a mask, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think if you're going into a closed facility, or a shop or anything like that, the mandate is we should be wearing them as it lessens the spread. But I think it's fair to say that can still get through. It's not going to stop them. They're bloody uncomfortable. There are other side effects, I think, albeit on the minor side, and it probably outweighs it wearing them for the time being.
Yeah, and just I'll get to that point in a second. I think I want to. My sister works in a theme park in Florida, and she wears a mask. She has to 8 hours a day. She has to for her entire shift in Florida. And she said it's for the most part. She said the people that I work with are fine. They got used to it. We get some rash. We get some stuff around the face. We have to make sure we're washing it. She's like, it's just uncomfortable. It's not a big deal. And I think, when you look at instances where there is oxygen deprivation, it's very much going to be down to, I'm sure if there's people that have, let's say asthma, or they do have breathing issues, that is going to be something they have to consider. And both the UK and the US government have things in place for people that can't wear masks. Now, there's some misunderstanding because it's quite a confusing topic. But I don't think when you look at the detriments of wearing a mask, I think you're talking a very small percentage of people. And for the most part, it's not an issue. I mean, before this, doctors were wearing masks that had less room for air to go through. So they're ones, the N95 masks. are less, I guess, permeable. And they wear them every day, all day. So the doctor, the one friend I know, he's an ER doctor. He said, I wear masks nonstop. It's not a big thing to me. You just need to make sure you're washing the mask, and it's uncomfortable. And it's just something we have to deal with. But just the next comment, fear and stress cause the hormonal cortisol to be released, which lowers the immune system. I'm sure that's true. That sounds, I think if you look at not just, I can identify with that from an anxiety perspective, because I've had anxiety make me feel physically ill. I've actually, been not just ill, but out of work ill because of anxiety. And I'm sure there's a link there with that. But I don't know that necessarily addresses, why we shouldn't wear masks. I think
I agree with that.
Yeah. I think when you look at masks, it's an individual thing to a degree, but the reasons for most people who are kicking off on those viral videos online are not people that are having to wear them enough where they're getting bacterial infections, don't have asthma, or don't have any pre-existing conditions that cause them to, have any oxygen deprivation whatsoever. So I think for most people, it's just a matter of, if you want to be near people, you want to go out in public, masks, the only thing they'll do really is allow people and businesses to stay open longer. That's where I don't connect this. More people wearing masks means more businesses can stay open, because the data is pretty clear that countries that have adopted mask wearing policies are seeing lower infection rates. The US is one of the few countries in the world that's making it into a political issue. A doctor recommendation a medical recommendation from doctors has become a political issue. And the US is just out of the off the spectrum with their infection rate. They're pushing 300,000 cases a day. And it's something my parents are nervous about. They're having to deal with living in a world where if they go anywhere, there was a video in LA just the other day. It was just yesterday. There was a video from a news helicopter where people were trying to find parking in a busy mall. So the mall is packed for Christmas. So there's people that are going to be in and out of that shop. And I have to believe that masks are helping mitigate some of that spread, so it's not just exploding all over the place. But again, I'm not a doctor, and Doc Connector, you may very well have more connections with medical professionals. If you're still listening, Dot, would you refuse to wear a mask, or are you comfortable to wear a mask? I'd be curious to know what your point of view is. And again, I'm not. Sorry, go ahead, mate.
No, finish up, Sean.
And I'm not giving anybody shade who can't wear a mask. The only thing I would question is the people that are giving shade to masks. How many of them have actual reasons to give shades to wearing masks? If it's just that you don't want to, then what is it about the doctor's recommendation? So do you not agree with what doctors are saying in general? So Doc Connector saying some doctors don't recommend it. Are they not recommending masks to the individual? Or are they saying that as a whole, we shouldn't wear masks because there's going to be more instances of medical problems from people wearing masks? So maybe there's data that we're going to find out that is going to change the mind of most doctors in the medical profession. Who knows?
Yeah, I think it's interesting to kind of see Doc Connector's text replies and comments and your own. He's just coming back in, so I'll let you finish up with that, Sean.
And where do you live? Are you in the States, or are you in another country outside of the States? Are you in the UK? Never worn a mask. So would you, if let's say, so is it a medical problem for you to not wear a mask? So do you choose to not wear a mask, or is it more of a statement that you think it's less healthy for you to wear a mask and there's no negative? So I've only seen 20 people wearing masks.
Yeah, and Doc Connector, if you were in the UK and the US where they legislate for wearing them going into shops, would you out of principle not wear one? Or is it just the fact that where you're based, it's not required? I live in Sweden. Okay.
It's interesting. From USA originally. And Sweden, they're I think you correct me if I'm wrong on this. They're changing their policy because they were going with herd immunity piece, and now they're starting to add some restrictions. I don't know that masks are in place.
Yeah, I think it's also Sweden's a big country, and people are drawn to Stockholm when they think of that, and I think that's a little different. They have widespread. I think they're having wider spread issues now, and the virus is working up more north. But where Lou's family are based, which is higher up in the sticks, I mean, the populations are so small, and you have to drive hours to get to a small town. It's a very different culture there.
Yeah, but I think too that's a good point to the way Sweden's laid out. And so just to be fair, Dots, he has asthma, and I think every right to be conscious about not wearing a mask, because that you don't want to put yourself in a position that you're giving yourself an asthma attack. And you've never seen an infected person. I think when you look at, and even in the UK, I guess the layout population wise does impact how you have to behave. So in areas like, let's say, Montana, where houses are really spread out, population density is quite low, the instances of interaction are a fraction of what they are in New York City.
Yeah.
So the more you are forced to be in close proximity with people, the more you're going to have transmission. It's a virus. I think everybody agrees that it's a highly transmissible thing. I don't think most people are going. Yeah, I don't think most people are going to argue the World Health Organization's data for deaths or infections. I think you can argue about what China. Yeah. So I mean, we can argue here and there that there's differences in numbers or how people are reporting them, but it is a problem. And I don't think any government wants to continue doling out money to people to not work, and nobody wants to see the economy go to shit. Even if somebody were to come up with a conspiracy theory to say, I want to see this happen so that Pfizer can win a big contract. There's for these countries, Pfizer and Moderna aren't going to be the be all and end all of the economy. The economy is going to suffer no matter how well Pfizer and Moderna do.
Already has, and if we fix everything today, there's some damage that's already been done that's going to take some while to unfix, and we're not out of the woods yet. So the damage is still being done, and we're not sure what the after effects will be of that. I think your point is very valid, and I really appreciate Dot coming forward. And
thank you, mate. Appreciate it.
We really appreciate having contrasting views on this channel. We really promote that. I think you've just got to look on it a case by case basis. This is where you come into difficulty when you go down the binary route, when something's right or wrong. Masks are right or masks are wrong. No, there is no right or wrong. You can. I think Dot is spot on that there are certain situations and certain health requirements where a mask could actually exacerbate other issues. The thing that kind of got my goat, I was speaking to a friend about it recently, was that, look, COVID is not the be all and end all in this world. This is what I think people are getting lost in, that they somehow think that we need to avoid COVID and there's nothing else going on. It couldn't be further from the truth. There's people with cancer. There are people with other really serious, more serious issues. They have health, mental health concerns that far outweigh what could happen with COVID. I'm not underestimating the potential that COVID has on the population. That's kind of speaking for itself. But we're very narrow-minded with it, and a mask does prevent, or not prevent. The mask does limit the amount of spread that can be done. I think everyone can acknowledge that fact as well. But a mask can also create some issues, and we've discussed a few on what Dot's suggesting.
Yeah.
We just have to look at each other as individuals and look at our circumstances and weigh up what is right for us. I think when you're in crowded areas and you're going into someone else's premises, it's you might feel fine about not getting the virus, but that other person may have asthma like that. They may have other underlying health concerns, and I think as a fellow human being, we should get uncomfortable and get through and wear a mask to try and help prevent the spread as a default. And for those that have underlying health issues where a mask is not great, well, if you really can't wear one, then you should just avoid putting yourself in that position for the time being, I believe. But it's not a straightforward, just from my explanation there, it's not a straightforward thing. There's a bit of gray in this.
Yeah. And that's saying overall deaths are predicted to decrease this year from last year to the USA. I hope so. And I expect there's a few things at play here, because there's going to be a point where a lot of people are going to have had it and they're going to have a level of immunity. And we are going to see those numbers drop. I think the vaccine will have a big hand in that as well. But the one thing that has always been true, and I've followed this and how it connected to the Spanish influenza. In March, I read about the Spanish influenza, and I read how even then they said that the cases tripled and quadrupled in volume from what they were in March, April, May, because of the cold weather that was rolling in. And sure enough, that happened. And in Spain again, the Spanish influenza the following year cases did eventually drop, but it wasn't until I want to say it stuck around for, it was a couple years, but because we have these vaccines at an exponentially faster rate, I think we are going to see a much more rapid descend on people that have the, who are dying. But also we're learning to treat it better. People were dying in the UK at a much higher rate in March, April, May, when we were chucking people on ventilators. And now the care, as far as how they're managing those issues, is getting much, much better. The US has actually done a really good job at keeping their death toll numbers down. And they've shown that their private healthcare hospitals are working to a very high level, whereas the UK has been surprisingly poor. Now, there's a lot of factors that go into that, such as the age of population. So Italy's death rate's quite bad, but they're one of the oldest countries in the world as far as average age. So there's stats, there's lies, there's damn lies, and there's statistics at the end of the day. So we do have to look at what makes up those figures. But I think you're right, Dot. I think we are going to see a decrease in deaths. But interestingly, we talk about, I think where people get passionate about is how it impacts businesses more than anything else. It's to what you're saying, Hugh. It's not a matter of people don't believe that we need to be careful around the virus, but we can't let the virus stop us doing our day-to-day jobs. And people focus a lot on the hospitality industry, pubs and restaurants. And pubs and restaurants, I went to a pub yesterday, and it was an incredible day. One of the best meals I've had all year. And I don't know if that's because a bit of recency bias on my part, because I haven't been out.
Maybe. Yeah,
it was incredible. But what I did note was when we have, this virus as it is now, we have a lot of businesses that are thriving also, as well as businesses that are going under. And I think it's a sad state of affairs for pubs. I don't think pubs should necessarily be open as they were, just going in and face-to-face chatting. I think there has to be some regulation. For the same reason you wouldn't open up a restaurant if it was near a flood zone or somewhere where there's going to be an avalanche. You don't just say, well, people can choose to take their risk. It's their business. They should be allowed to open up their building in an avalanche zone. You wouldn't do that. You would accept the fact that they would have to close. But there's restaurants and businesses around restaurants that are transforming. And I saw this yesterday. I wanted to share this with you. And I thought this was incredible. This is a bit of ingenuity. And I'll get to your comment again in a second there, Dot. I saw this yesterday sitting next to me. So what this is and actually, let me take that banner off because it's no longer relative to what I'm talking about. This is a picture of a, when you go to conferences, you get those fold-out screens that have your branding on it. So this company would have been damaged by this. This would have been, their whole business model is on people going to conferences and unfolding these pieces of marketing to put behind the table. And what they've done is they've repurposed them for makeshift screens for restaurants. So this was next to us, and I thought this was incredibly creative. Whomever is working for this company needs a raise and a half. And this is the kind of ingenuity that I like seeing. There's restaurants by me that are making a killing right now by turning their business into a very efficient takeaway of high quality food. They're delivering food that you can reheat that's partially cooked. Or there's another restaurant that's you're ordering direct and you're getting the incredible food that they're serving, and they're not doing well. I would say they're doing better if the restaurant was open, but they're finding a way to adapt and survive. And I think that's what it's going to take for a lot of these businesses.
Yeah, like all business in general, mate, doesn't it? Things change, and you've got to roll with the punches, or you're going to suffer. I think the one, because I know you took the original comment down, that what led us into this, and I think what I wanted to do was kind of bring it back, which was regardless of where you stand in it, there is absolutely no justification for threats and violence or to anything, or abuse at anything that end. I think either way, there are people that I've heard as well that have, I think I mentioned it early on, with someone that was outside exercising, and someone actually said to them, "Where the fuck's your mask?" And they weren't even near them. I was like, to speak to people like that is an atrocity. So I think the way people are handling that, which I think the mayor did a good job of actually preempting by saying that, I understand people are broke, they're out of their job, they're worried, they're not of sound mind, they're a bit more depressed or anxious, so they're probably acting a little bit more out of turn. I understand that, but still, I don't think it that the recourse should be that we're therefore allowed to go and start threatening people and abusing people. I think we need to be better than that as a society. So regardless of where you sit on this, wherever the extreme, that is not the answer.
Yeah. We'll get to your last 4 comments in a second thought. And I just wanted to touch on that. And I think how people are approaching this is very much a pattern of what we've been seeing over the last 2 or 3 years, where people are, again, setting up camp in their corner and impassionately arguing a point without knowing the full spectrum of what's going on the other side of the coin. So if I saw Dot and I were to say, why the fuck aren't you wearing a mask? The second he says, I've got asthma, I'm going to feel like an asshole.
Exactly.
I'm going to. So I think that's where we need to come to a bit. And just to follow up, you may be able to answer some of these comments on from this. Just 4 comments here. I haven't had a cold, flu, virus, or infection in the last 17 years since I started taking 9,000 milligrams of vitamin C powder daily.
That's a lot of vitamin C, by the way. And I know I just want to put a disclaimer out there. People have that. Anyone watching that just went straight onto it. You could even get the shits from that. So if he takes that and it works for him, that's great. But people that go up on vitamin C to quite a high level, there is a cost to it as well. But vitamin C in general is you have to get the bare minimum of that. You have to, and it's one of the. I think again we talk about masks, and everyone should be having the minimum levels of vitamin C, and probably having a little bit more than the minimum, but at least the minimum. And people should be having taking vitamin D. Those two are like you really should. If you're worried about yourself, you should be having both of those bases covered. I wouldn't recommend that much straight in, but you should be taking vitamin C.
I read vitamin D vitamin D. So I read about this yesterday because Nick had some vitamin D, and I know Joe Rogan talks about vitamin D on his podcast regularly. And what I've read in a few different areas is you don't really need to take it when you're out and about during the summer, spring. But in this country, in Britain, you do. It actually said, and this was on the NHS site as well. Vitamin D is good to take supplements of, because of how low the sun is in the summer. You get a lot of your vitamin D from the sun. You don't get enough, and it does promote. What did it say? You might be able to better answer that. Vitamin D, what it promotes. I think it's got a health component to it.
Yeah, immunity. It's like vitamin D has been explained by Dr. Rhonda Patrick, who was on Rogan's show, who Rogan is quoting. It's Dr. Rhonda Patrick, so you can check her stuff out. But she believes vitamin D is not really a vitamin. It's more like a hormone. You have a look at the effects of vitamin D on the body, the benefits of having it. So it's an absolute no-brainer if you're in somewhere like the UK or in Dot's case in Sweden, because he'll be coming to the time of the year. I don't know whereabouts he's in Sweden, but if you go up north, you might actually have permanent darkness. And the middle, you'll get a very short window of light. So vitamin D, you need that, or you need to have some light therapy to make up for the levels of vitamin D. If you don't get that, you can be in a lot of trouble. You'll be susceptible to catching a whole host of things, and COVID just being one of them.
So just a few other comments coming in. Also, kombucha repopulates. Sorry, I think I jumped over one. Kombucha removes toxins from liver, to clarify. So a lot of this stuff, I don't know that we can comment on. You may have heard of this.
Yeah, kombucha is great for you. Yeah, you look at the reports on it. I don't think I've ever come across anything that was negative about it. It's just to build up your gut bacteria, which again is your second brain. And gut health is something that's another underknown issue for people's health in general. You can have a whole host of issues, and if you spend the time to have a look at your gut flora, and you spend some time to feed in the good bacteria, look after your gut health, it can transform your health altogether. So it's and people with gut health issues can have issues their entire life and still be healthy, but that it can wreck everything. It can make or break you.
So I'll read the comment, but I want to put a disclaimer out there that, and there's no disrespect, I just want to make it very clear that when we take a look at making comments on, let's say, terminal cancer patients are given 100 to 300,000 milligrams and are cured, I'm happy to read the comment, but I would also stress that anybody reading this needs to speak to a doctor about any sort of cure or any treatment that they're undertaking. And I respect that you have an opinion on that, but I don't want people to watch this and make a determination on their situation without speaking to a doctor. Everybody's position is different. I've not heard about that with regard to, people getting vitamin D, vitamin C, and being cured. So I'm not going to go too far down that road, but I'm happy to read the comments. I just want to throw that disclaimer out there.
Yeah, I think that's fair. When you say I don't think it's that much, I do for someone going from scratch anyway. I don't think it's unhealthy, but I know, put it this way, I've actually upped my doses of vitamin C before and I've shit myself. So, and that is a common thing. That might just be me, and it's not the end of the world. It's not the worst thing that can happen to you.
Yeah.
But if you have a look at the negative, I watched a documentary that was reading. Do you know what it was? It was Bigger, Faster, Stronger, which was talking about the steroids, the use of steroids, good and bad things. And it was really interesting documentary. You'd probably like, Sean. And they read out a whole host of these negative health effects. And they said, "What do you think this is?" And you're like, "I don't know." And it said vitamin C. So it reeled off, if you have too much vitamin C, there are actually downsides to it. But you definitely need to get your base, because if you're ill or under the weather, vitamin C will help at least limit that, or in many cases take you out. It will prevent it altogether. So it's definitely worth it. And I am aware that vitamin D does help the absorption of vitamin C as well. Vitamin D is a wonder vitamin. It does a whole host of things.
So, and last comment from Dot is not permanent darkness here up north. They have it. And yes, I'd love to go really far north, where I know more so for the daytime thing in Iceland. They have a midnight or a midnight golf tournament. They do when it's all day daylight. I'd love to be able to go up and do that. That would be incredible to play in a golf tournament at 2 a.m. in daylight. That would just be such a cool thing to do.
I want to share this with Dot as well as yourself, Sean, but my other half is Swedish, so she's it's like the center of Sweden, which like we in the UK, we class people in Manchester like up north when it's really in the middle of England. Well, she gets the same thing. So she's classed as a northerner, but it's actually, if you looked at the whole country, it's a very long country. She's about halfway up it. And they, having been witness to it as well, they have permanent sunlight in the summer. And that was weird. It's not like totally bright. It does come down. It's like an evening, maybe in another like half an hour outside. You can tell it's dim, but it's not dark. There's light out, and that was very weird, Sean. So, I didn't like it. I like my nights. I like to go to bed in a dark room. That was very strange. I've only experienced it once as well, but in those countries as well, you've got the flip side, haven't you? I would hate it to be permanently dark in the light. I'm glad that Dot doesn't have to go through that. I can imagine. I think, again, this is anecdotal, but Lou said I think the suicide rate is supposed to be pretty high when it's really high up with Sweden, because it's not. I don't think it's really healthy for us humans not to have some sun.
That's something that I think. Well, my wife she openly struggles with. I guess the winter blues. When you start losing that daylight, you work from, it's dark when you get up and it's dark when you finish work, and it's terrible. I want to transition to our last few bits, but the one thing I did want to share, one last thing on the COVID thing is, well done to the UK on getting the vaccine up and running and going. My wife's Nan had a vaccine this last week, so we're going out. So it's going. Yeah. But my wife shared this with me, and I thought it was funny. Hugh, I have a strategy on making myself better, and I think you will, of anybody, be really on board with this idea. So I'm going to share what I found, and I think I sent this to you earlier in the week. It is a COVID-Q vaccine calculator. So what I did was I put in my details. Let me find it here. Is it down here? About you, age. Okay, so let me populate this. So I'm going to give up my age. I'm 43. No, I'm not pregnant. I'm not a healthcare worker. Were you? No, I wasn't asked to shield. Do you have any underlying health conditions? Now, this is the interesting thing for me, mate. So right now, it's supposed to ask for my weight as well. Did it not do that? So on here, if you were to do it on your mobile device, it'll ask you for what your weight is. And my weight is 21 stone. Now, I'm not sure whether I'm obese or morbidly obese. I think I'm morbidly obese. Now, if I just put in 21 stone, and I don't have so one of the pre-existing conditions is morbidly obese. If I don't put morbidly obese in, my vaccine will be coming in circa September's time, something like that. However, if I put
September next year.
Yes.
Right.
However, if I put in morbidly obese, I'm looking March to April. So I'm kind of thinking if I can start smashing pizzas now, that's actually a healthier move to get to that morbidly obese. And then I can just dig it back. You know, I've got the vaccine. I can start being a bit healthier. What do you think? Good idea.
I don't know if I can recommend that, Sean.
You sure?
I can see the logic. I can see where you're coming from on that end. But yeah, I mean, my concern with the vaccine stuff is that already we're talking about in the UK that there's a more aggressive, there's a new strain of it, which again, it was something that they said very early on that you're not just going to wipe the one out. It will mutate and there'll be different strains of it and it will change and you'll have to build immunity for the different strains. So I think this is something we're going to be living with for a couple of years, which for me is a concern. I think there are going to be, I don't think we're going to be out of the woods with a vaccine either. So it does, that concern. I know you're messing around, Sean. I know you're kind of, you know,
I'm not going to. Don't worry. I mean, I'm going to
do that, but
I'll be working on it over Christmas. I will be trying to like inadvertently get morbidly obese, but on that point, I was curious about that. So this is what I read, just a few articles from scientists. I don't know. I'm not saying this is the answer. I'm not a doctor, but I did read the way this RNA vaccine works is it's the building blocks of COVID. It's fighting. So it doesn't matter what the strain is. There's been strains. There's always strains. There's going to be a new strain. It mutates slightly, but the building blocks of this are, you know, what it builds antibodies for. So it's supposed to still fight any new strain, any strain of the COVID virus. Okay. So now again, we're still learning, and that could change. And I could have read something that was absolutely bullshit. I read it in a few spaces. But that being said, I still think it's some positive news. It's gonna increase immunity. You know, it's
going to help, isn't it?
Yeah. So I wanted to wrap up today just to sort of jump back into which it would be funny if we saw Dot drop off American politics, which you're from Sweden. So similar to me, Dot and I are in very similar situations. I've moved to the United Kingdom. He has moved to Sweden from the USA. So we're expats together, and just been sort of keeping an eye on how things have progressed. So last week we were talking about the election. We were talking about how the votes are decided. There's no real evidence to say that there isn't any significant evidence to say that there was a fraudulent election and that Biden won through this mass cheating campaign. This week I saw recently Rand Paul. So Rand Paul I don't know if he's a senator or a congressman, not sure. But President-elect Biden is now confirmed by the Electoral College. It's certified. He is going to be the next president. And the Trump team is still fighting the fight. And people who are in higher positions of power, in my view, are still gaslighting. And I want to play something that I saw earlier this week from Rand Paul, which I just think it's irresponsible, in my opinion. I think it's just saying shit.
But the fraud.
Let me put that on the screen for you to see, though.
Yeah, let's have a look at this. So I'm coming at this special.
The election in many ways was stolen, and the only way it'll be fixed is by, in the future, reinforcing the laws. And the only last comment I would say on what Mr. Krebs, and he can speak for himself, but I think his job was keeping the foreigners out of the election. It was the most secure election based on security of the internet and technology. But he never has voiced an opinion. He's welcome to today on whether or not dead people voted. I don't think he examined that. Did he examine non-citizens voting? So to say it was the safest election, sure, I agree with your statement if you're referring to foreign intervention. But if you're saying it's the safest election based on no dead people voted, no non-citizens voted, no people broke the absentee rules, I think that's false. And I think that's what's upset a lot of people on our side, is that they're taking your statement to mean, oh, well, there was no problem in the elections. I don't think you examined any of the problems that we've heard here. So really, you're just referring to something differently is the way I look at it.
So interestingly, I think he played.
Here. What's been brought forward then?
Nothing.
Does he have evidence that counters that, that's got dead people's names on that have been voted? What's he got?
So I went back and just double checked because I did a lot of research in Georgia, and this was in relation to Georgia. And Georgia's having what's called a runoff because the election was, I think, a dead heat, or it was too. I forget. There's a certain percentage. If you don't win by a certain percentage of votes, for I think it's for the state representation, then you have to rerun. And in Georgia, he's making the claim that people haven't checked if dead people or foreigners have voted. And they're also making the claim that there's no signature check and identification. And if you just do a cursory Google search on the state's website or anywhere, you just search voting in Georgia, you need to, if you go and vote in person, you need to have a voter ID, which in some states is considered a bit of a deterrent for people that are, let's say, poor or uneducated to go and vote, because not everybody has ID who maybe isn't in a higher economic position. But if you wanted to get a mail-in ballot, you also have to provide your driver's license or identification number on that ballot, on that application for a ballot before you send it in, and then you have to send a signature. So they need something to compare the signature to. So that claim, where I keep struggling with this is it's certified, it's done. And he's making claims that I still struggle to see how, given the certain setup, how we can have dead people and illegals voting to a degree that's going to overturn an election. And I just feel like, and this is me saying what I feel. So I want to be clear. These are my views. My views are not the views expressed by the channel. But these are my views. And I at this point, it becomes a bit dangerous now, where you really start pushing this narrative. And you're continuing to divide a country when you have a new leadership coming into place, and you're just gaslighting people. This is, to me, gaslighting. You're saying shit and seeing what happens. You're just trying to get something to stick at this stage. And I just don't understand how we can have a targeted campaign to overturn 8 million votes or to cast 8 million votes without anyone knowing. It just doesn't make sense, and it just keeps going.
Yeah. That's how it appears to me too. But again, I don't follow it and I don't know. But I'd be interested to hear what evidence they have to kind of prove that some of these claims that is made, that potential dead people have voted or not. Like, that's if they have got something bringing to the table, I'm all ears. It's just that all I'm hearing again is, or what I've seen on this channel, because I don't really follow the news, is just kind of accusations. I'm not one that kind of listens wholeheartedly to accusations. I'll always hear people out, but you got to follow it up more than that. It can't just be a shot in the dark. Well, this might have happened. Well, it might not have happened though. So what have you got to suggest that it does? Because what you said is pretty bold. Let's see what you've got to kind of back that up.
It's how bold it is, which is surprising. It is the scale of fraud that would have to go on would be just, I want to use the word unfathomable. Yeah, I shouldn't have even tried to use that word.
You know what I'm.
Yeah, I think I did. I'll just say unfathomable. I'll just say it really quick. But to be able to organize people that have ID, because George actually said, after it was last week, about a week and a half ago, they said, because people are being such assholes about this, I'm paraphrasing, but because people are being such assholes about this, we're going to do an audit of the election, and we're just going to go back and check. And what'll happen, and this happens in every election worldwide because people make errors, there's going to be like a 0.25% difference in votes, because they're going to find that there's a few people that manage to put a vote in for their dead uncle or dead aunt.
It's human error. It's human error. We make mistakes. So there probably is going to be some level. I would be in agreement. I would be actually shocked if it was exactly the same.
Yeah. So now what we're saying is, let's I think it was 10,000 votes, let's say. So now we need to somehow come up with enough foreign people who can forge identification, or enough dead people that we can target and get willing relatives or people to somehow get their identification and get a ballot and send that ballot in, and somehow nobody will know what's going on, because the choreography that would have to go into such a successful campaign would be impossible to cover up. And we do have a comment from Dot. The election fraud must be proven. Fraud was being discussed before the election. Well, yeah, it was discussed by Donald Trump. Donald Trump was the only one that was discussing fraud by mail-in votes. And I'm not surprised that we're still getting fraud. And the election is always investigated. They always audit check. They always do checks. It's part of the process. And Georgia's part of the process.
Again, I made that point previously on another episode. I think it might have been 1 or 2 ago. But there is always election fraud. For people to think that it's ever 100% kosher is just it's just a shame, really, because if we don't think that there are deals and votes and stuff being happen under the table, or because of this, if I pay you this, and there are business and government kind of dealerships, I've seen enough movies behind it. I've heard people speak on podcasts that have looked into doing this and what it takes to run in office, and enough to know that it's a very dirty scene, having not gone through it. So I think fraud is to a level where people are going to be voting for reasons outside of who they want in office, because being forced into it for whatever reason, or having some bargaining tool or some agreement made. It's just that we want to keep that fraud to an absolute minimum. I think that's their point. And I agree with your point wholeheartedly, that I think it must be proven. We can air it out. We can listen to it. It must be proven. And the thing that bothers me is what Sean has said, and your second point there, which is it was discussed before the election. I didn't like that. You're kind of going into it already. It was just kind of, he was setting himself. It's again, this is me, Hughes science again, giving his take on it. It sounded like he was setting himself up for failure, and this is his backup plan if it went wrong. It's just a real weak leadership move to kind of complain about something prior to it happening, like going into a sporting event saying the referees are terrible, they make terrible calls. Yeah, and you go into it and then I lost. Oh, well, the referee was. I kind of said that before. It's cowardly. It's pathetic. It's it could be accurate, but it's so distastefully done. If you think that's the case, be quiet. Then if there is something that's been done that's been unjust from a referee standpoint, then bring up the evidence behind it and then follow through with it. Do it the right way.
The last election he won, he claimed there was widespread voter fraud. And he said, and I'm going to paraphrase, that they were bussing in illegals to vote in states where you still need ID. And he said that's why his margin wasn't as big as it was, which I think is more of his narcissism coming through. He just doesn't fathom that people didn't vote for him. He's amazing. Yeah. And so he went from saying that the polling places are, the people are being bussed in. There's wide rampant voter fraud. And now he's saying, if you want to safely vote, you need to go to the polling places to vote, not vote by post. So it's like, okay, well, so none of the voting is, and there's the thing is too, that, so there's, if you ever get a chance, and you probably would, Dot, if you ever get a chance, there's a place called the Brennan Center, which is a Republican think tank. So that's the party of Donald Trump, who's been collecting every historical instance of voter fraud that's ever been documented. And I think it represents something like 0.275% of the overall votes were impacted by voter fraud. It's some innocuous number like, I don't know, like 200,000 votes over the course of every historical election. And a lot of those instances of fraud usually come down to actionable plans. So things such as what they call harvesting votes. So going to where you can get, let's say, an older person, they get to post in their vote. You can go and you fill in this form, make sure you vote for Trump, and I'll come and I'll collect it. Or make sure you vote for Biden. And then what you do is you go through this campaign to make sure you're collecting all the votes you want. And I think in some states that's legal. But there's instances where those ballots are sent in and somebody takes those ballots from a post office and throws them in the river or something like that. And usually it's about 2,000, 4,000, even 10,000 votes. I think the biggest voter fraud, prosecuted voter fraud was like 20,000 votes. But on the scale of balance, and I know in Georgia it was 10,000 votes, but these are smaller elections. It's easier to get away with because there's less bureaucracy protecting the sanctity of those smaller elections. The presidential election, every state has just tons of regulation that goes into registering to vote, and also how they train people and how they count those votes. In Pennsylvania, you have two teams going, that looks like Biden. Does that look like Biden? That looks like Biden. Okay, we're going to mark it as Biden. And then we have another team who checks it, says, yep, that's Biden. Let's move it on. Count that. So it's not as if it's that easy to get one by the keeper when it comes to 60 to 70 million. No, what was it? So it was 150 million people voted. That wasn't that much. It was 80 and 70 million, I think, the votes the president and the president-elect got. So there's just this whole feasibility conversation that's not being had. You're claiming something that has never been proven statistically, even remotely close. You're claiming there's a new paradigm of cheating going on that would require wide-scale investment and time and coordination to a point where it would almost be impossible to cover up. And Dot's got another comment. To combat fraud and silence the skeptics, perhaps voting should be secured with bank ID. They use an ID provided by the bank here to verify identity. It's interesting because this was the same, Veg last week was commenting, and that seems to be a popular comment from a lot of our viewership, is seeing more strict ID. And for me, I personally don't disagree with that. And using bank ID, yeah, I mean, you banks have IDs. Everyone usually has a bank account. Most people do. And identity verification is something that's quite key when it comes time to registering the vote. There's some states that are not sure about that because there's not been enough evidence to state, and this is something where I think is an arguable point. There's not been enough evidence to state that the lack of voter ID has caused widespread fraud, or has changed the outcome of an election. And the view is, and we said this last week, the view is if you add voter ID as a requirement to put in a vote as a citizen, which you can't necessarily confirm, then that's going to eliminate the people who don't have means to a ID. You're blocking people who maybe don't have education or don't have money to getting an ID. I don't know where I sit on that. I genuinely don't know where I sit, because to get an ID shouldn't be difficult in itself. And I don't have any problem with being asked for an ID when I go to vote, but I also am not somebody who's poor or uneducated.
Yeah, I don't know. Again, I don't think there's one answer to fix this, no. But I think what Ved was suggesting, what Dot's suggesting, makes total sense to me. And having some form of verification. The idea I think that was floated was maybe an online vote, that everyone goes online, and then you have the counter that not everyone is online. I know most people are, but not everyone is, and technology is easy for the younger or middle age, but the elderly, it's a no-go, and they have a right to vote too. So I think this seems like a good compromise, where it's kind of a continuation from what's currently in place, like the in-person voting with ID, or if you did a mail-in, you had a copy of your ID with it or something, with a signature, is a step in the right direction, perhaps.
Yeah, where I'm a bit torn, and this is where I'm going to be a bit sort of in the middle, is when you look at somebody who's disenfranchised, and this is opening a can of worms, and this isn't me saying I think it. There's a large percentage of people in the United States that are disenfranchised, that are discriminated against. Now, we can argue to what scale, but I think there is discrimination in the U.S. I don't think there's much argument about that to a degree. And is it more important that they have, so they're not going to want to register themselves on a system that they feel is going to disenfranchise them, or is going to use their identification or details to, maybe put them in prison? We've seen countless videos, and we're going to see more negative than positive videos. There's no doubt about that. So I'm not saying that it happens all the time and police are bad. I'm not saying that. But we do see a lot of videos, or a lot of instances, where justice does skew to the side of people that have money and have an education, or people that in the States are whiter than most. And because of that, you can see why people don't want to be pulled over by the police or be registered on any system, because they feel that's going to be their ticket to being, wrongly accused or arrested, or it sounds ridiculous, but to somebody who is disenfranchised, it doesn't. And then the question is it more important to give them a voice and allow them to vote if we have no data to say that there is widespread voter fraud when people don't produce an ID? Or, should we be looking at making sure everybody has an ID? What doesn't sit well with me is this whole push for identification is based off of claims that aren't backed by evidence. Now, that doesn't mean that I don't think ID should be used, but I think that this isn't a conversation that we can say ID is a no-brainer. It's not necessarily.
Yeah, it's a fair point you bring to the table. I think there's more right with it than wrong. Is my uneducated guess of where my current stance of where I'm at with it. I think you bring a strong point to the table. There is a negative side effect from it, but as a result, I think it's kind of leaning in the right direction. And you know, from someone going through property development at the moment, property investing, I need to prove all of my funds to have a privilege, which voting is a privilege to be in a position. I have to provide proof of funds, proof of where my funds came from. It's anti-money laundering. It's to show where the money's coming from and have screenshots of all my bank accounts and stuff like that. Then you're like, oh, why do you need all this stuff? It's like, yeah, in case you're a bad guy, you're a drug dealer, you're using money from illegal. I was like, but what percentage of people are doing that? Like, yeah, so everyone at 99.9% of people have got to do this. For the 0.01%, it's like, okay, well, it's the only way to do it. So if it is a hard stance on it, and look, I don't think there's really many people going into the realm of property investing or getting a mortgage and that enjoys doing anti-money laundering. It's part of you just got to do it. And I think that it maybe isn't ideal, and there are new concerns that come up as a result of this. Again, I don't think it's about trying to find a silver bullet. I think it's about just trying to find a system that's slightly better than what we've currently got. And I think the ID checks are a move in that direction, whichever route you go down, whether it was, you know, in person or bank ID in this case, or passport or driver's license or something. It's a difficult issue, isn't it? I think we just got to admit that as well.
I think I agree. I think I lean towards saying, you know, not necessarily voter ID. I think voter ID sounds very sort of Third Reichish. You know, do you have your papers kind of thing? But I also at the same time think everybody should have some identification as a safety valve if you get hit by a car or you get arrested for doing something wrong, which touches on some of the concerns people would have. I think having identification as to who you are. And I'm not talking about having identification so you were forced to produce it to a police officer who's just asking you why you're standing out front of your house sweeping. I think it's just good to have identification for things such as banking and, you know, to protect yourself from fraud, for voting as well. And I think it's more about making the means to getting identification clearer, but also limiting the access and, you know, how people use ID against you as a person. It shouldn't be a tool to use against you. It should be a tool that you can use to protect yourself. And protecting your vote, I think, is protecting yourself as well. You have a voice. You don't want somebody taking that vote to support something that is contrary to what you're about.
I'm also going to make this point again because I feel quite strongly about it. I think the system they have in place is an old, antiquated, out-of-date system that was put in place from a time that no longer exists, and that these kind of the polarization between the two parties is got worse, if anything. It's aggressive. There are so many negatives to it. I don't think it's moving in the right direction. I think the whole thing needs to be scrapped and started over, so that actually there's less of a detriment whichever way it slides, because there's going to be input from both sides of the you know, the left and right wing side of things. So I don't like the way that it's, you know, left's in power. So, you know, then you've got half of the country that are just in turmoil, and vice versa 4 years later. That's not a healthy way to do things. Yeah,
I think, and that's a conversation maybe for another show, depending on what, you know, we're going to be touching on these things each week and bit by bit. And I think ultimately it's sort of a natural progression when it comes to, you know, politics and you know, the many voices have a louder say at the table. And if you were to diversify those to have 5 or 6 parties, you're kind of weakening that message for those people. So that's why you see in almost every country, you usually have 2 or 3 parties that are fairly dominant. But I think that's a can of worms that we don't want to necessarily delve into at this stage, as we're coming up on the 2-hour mark here. So yeah, that's what's been going on this week in the news, and that is our ASMR and current events catch up. Is there anything else on your mind this week, Hugo?
No, I just first of all, I want to thank Dot as well for your contribution across a couple of those. We always appreciate people getting involved, and thank you for sharing your thoughts. And we especially appreciate those counter thoughts as well. And you did go into more detail when we asked, so really appreciate your input there, Dot. No, for me, mate, I had some, you know, good news on a personal front that we're purchasing our 3rd property now. So we've third pub development when we start work on the next few months. So yeah, that's really exciting. There's been a lot of work going into making this happen, and off the back of Christmas, I think there's a lot more that's going to be happening on that front. So I'll be excited to kind of share all that with you, mate.
Well, we definitely have to go over that once you. I really, what I'll do is I didn't do this last week. I'm going to share the link. We should share it via social media if you want. The Bearded Philosophy social media, the link to your video for the pub, so people can follow along with the development. Most definitely.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah. Well, it's Christmas coming up. You're with fam. I'm with some fam, but not with everybody.
Yeah, not yeah.
So we got our new tier 4 restrictions in place, and you're unfortunately in a tier 1 place. So enjoy your holiday break. And are we still on for Sunday next week?
I was going to say I don't think we will be, because that's going to be a mini get together with the nephews coming over. So yeah, I don't think that's going to be a goer, mate, for me. But in 2 weeks' time, what's the date?
That's fine. Look. So I know what next week's show is going to be about then if you're not in. So
yeah, but I will check yours out. What's it going to be on, Sean?
So I just so that you didn't have to, I thought it would be fun to do. I see these films sometimes, and I love bad TV and bad films. I spent 2 hours last night watching a show called Ghost Nation. I don't believe in ghosts. I love watching people go through a process for something I think is just silly, but I love their passion, and just in my head, I don't know what it is about it. And I came across as somebody who's watched the TV show Finding Bigfoot. I was always fascinated by their passion for something that I look at and say, yeah, I just don't see how you can spend that much time for something that I think is quite obviously not real. But I also accept with Bigfoot, it is something that you can put some science into, and you can say, yeah, it is feasible that there is a single ape or something in the woods that branched off from some. Yeah, it's even Jane Goodall, I think that's her name, has said that nothing's impossible in that realm. But yeah, that's not true. I found this documentary by a gentleman named Todd Standing, who I think is a name in the Bigfoot community, and he's made a documentary, and I watched it. I watched all 1 hour and 45 minutes of the 2 hour documentary, which I had to bail at a certain point. But I'm going to do a review of this. It'll probably be a recorded video. I may not do a live stream on it.
Oh, mate, I'll keep an eye out for that.
So it was fascinating, to say the least. And I may be digging into more of the Bigfoot community in future non-live videos. But if anybody does want to go live and talk Bigfoot, I would love that too. But I don't think it's got enough of a draw right now. But we'll see. Maybe we'll do a future Bigfoot episode.
Yeah.
Who knows what happens? So, all right, mate. Well, listen, if I don't speak to you, have a lovely Christmas. And my love to your fam. And to everybody else. And Dot, thank you for sticking with us and watching. We're going to continue breaking these episodes up as well over the course of the week. So if you do want to sit through just the section that you're interested in, great. If you want to watch the whole thing, even better. Please, please, please like and subscribe. We don't say that enough. Subscribe. We want to get more people on board. We want to get more people into the conversation, more people like Dot who give us feedback, who give us comments. And Dot, happy holidays, my friend. Thank you very much. And
you too.
To everybody else, have a wonderful Christmas, a happy New Year, and I will see you next week. Take care.
Take care.